Another good heat of seniors and a deep heat of seniors at that. I'm going to do the same thing that I did here within that last heat. I'm going to bring these three back here for our final drive here momentarily, but still talk to these guys. The young lady there with the red blaze, I think she is really, really close. There's a couple things that I want to change in her. That calf, he's a little hard to show in the notion that he's just a little rounder there in his hip. That calf, you almost need to stretch just a shade more than how you got him right there. Watch where those front legs set in him just a little more. The other thing I'd do is choke up just a little bit on your halter, just a little bit. That way you got a little more just leverage in getting his head positioned exactly where you want. Same thing with the young lady there with the black and white steer. Same deal. I think we could choke up on that steer's halter, and that guy doesn't want to be a dancing partner today, and so he kind of wants to get out of line pretty good there. And so just make sure, even though he wants to act up on you there pretty good, keep him in a good line there with the rest of the crew, and I think we can move you up there as well. Then the young man there that's on the far side, I think another young man, very, very collected, very calm. I like where he positions himself on that calf. And then on top of that, for the most part, that steer's hind leg is set up where it needs to be. Every now and again, I'll catch him kind of offset just a little bit. And again, I'd choke up just a little on your halter and get it a little closer there to his face. And also, with that being said, I'd shrink his halter down there just a little bit. It's a little bit too far down over the bridge of his nose, and so whenever he wants to fight you, I'd imagine that's almost part of it, is because when we get that halter farther down on the bridge of their nose, then it actually wants to cut off some oxygen there, and so they want to kind of fight that, shrink that up to where it's a little more right underneath of his eye, and I think that'll help. But a very nice job to those exhibitors. Please give them a nice round of applause.
Back into the ring, Elizabeth Quick, Connor Price, Joseph Kinney, Anna Vetter, Jackson Sieber, and Lily. Please head back into the ring for the final round of senior showmanship. We want to thank our buckle sponsor in memory of Keith Hanlon, the Hanlon family. Thank you.
A good heat of seniors here. Before I say a whole lot, can you congratulate, within the crowd, congratulate the good group of senior showmen here? Again, and I know I'm sure after the week, I'm sure everybody's sick of hearing me talk here, but I think it's important that we go through and you can kind of hear and understand what goes through my head as we get out here in showmanship, and I think it's important for the youth, in addition to that, to understand at least this one particular judge's opinion on what I think they do well and what I think they can change just a little bit. The young man there with the red steer, I think that young man, as far as how he gets that calf set up, I think very, very good. That calf is set up very appropriately as far as where his hind leg is placed, where his front legs are placed is right, and he won't let that steer get lazy-headed either, and that is very, very good. A very, very intense showman. For this judge, me personally, I think you could almost just kind of almost lighten up there just a little bit. You're almost just a little bend over, and then at times we want to kind of sit and do this little dance here. Keep kind of square, and then choke up on your halter there just a little bit. Get just a shade closer to that calf's head, and I think that'll help you. It helps the whole look come together just a little bit, but I like his intensity, I like his competitiveness, and that's just it. I'm a very, very big believer that for you intermediates and juniors, you should be watching this senior class and kind of understanding what I like, and that's one thing that I like. If you're intense and you you have that I want to win showmanship look, it makes it very, very challenging for me to beat you, even if there is some things that we can change, but I think that young man does a good job at that. The young lady is a lot the same story, where she positions herself. How she holds that heifer's halter, I think, is probably as good as any. Not probably, it is as good as any. Where she positions herself has that extra bit of showmanship and pizzazz. Where she gets that heifer's hind leg placed is very, very appropriate. Just a very, very complete showman, in my opinion, even though her heifer does kind of want to act up on her at times. That's getting pretty particular, in my opinion. The young man that comes next, a lot the same story in the notion that a very, very professional, a very upright young man that I think does a very nice job just as far as being calm and collected, and still that calf wants to work for him in addition to that. If I'm going to change how he gets that steer set up, I'd move his offside back leg forward just a little bit, and he set those hind legs in the exact same spot every time, but that's what I'd do, is that offside hind leg, move it up forward just a shade, just to help his lower body kind of come together just a little bit better, and then make sure we're pretty aggressive on getting his head up. Young man there with the yellow steer, I think another one. When he first comes in the ring, not only because he's big and not only because he's got a wicked mullet, but he has a very good ring presence about him. I think that young man is very competitive. I like that about him. I like where he positions himself in relation to that steer. At times I think that calf is set up to the nines, and there's other times, kind of like right now, I'd almost say he's just a nickel too stretched out. We get that back leg just a little too stretched, in my opinion, and more so even than that. Now that he kind of fixed himself, that's where I like that steer and where he should be presented. The other downfall that I change with the young man, and don't get me wrong, I think he's very competitive and he's in the hunt here, we'll let that steer get just a little too lazy-headed, and so make sure we're pretty aggressive on popping his head up, because he's got a little extra chest, he's got a little extra neck, and so make sure we can get his head up and pull that chest back up into him, but a very competitive young man. The young lady that comes next, I think, to be honest with you, she's just kind of no holes. There's just nothing really the young lady does necessarily wrong. She gets that hind leg set where it needs to. She's very good as far as where she positions herself, how she holds that steer's halter, I think is very appropriate. We pick a hole in her, that calf will just get a little too lazy-headed on you at times and almost turn up the intensity and get his head up, and I think that'll help the whole look of that calf come together just a little bit. And then the young lady that we haven't talked about yet with that blaze face steer, again, where she gets feet and legs set up, I think is very appropriate for that steer. And like we talked about him in class earlier today, he's kind of hard to show just because his shoulder angle is a little bit more rock forward, hind legs a little straighter, and so where you position those legs become very, very important to help him pull together and get a good look. And I think she's done a very good job at that. Again, a very intense showman. Along with that said, if I change anything, and this is just me, personal preference, I'd flip your hand over on your halter to where that way then your thumb is a little closer to that ring. To me, it just looks better. That's just my personal preference there. One judge's opinion. Like I said, a very good group of seniors. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to tell you exactly the way I like them from 6th to 1st. And like I said, I think it's close. All of you kids need to leave here knowing that to come back within the champion drive of your county fair and showmanship is an awful big feat. So I congratulate you. The young man here with the black steer, he's going to go ahead and be 6th here today. The young man with the red steer, he's going to go ahead and be 5th. Very job well done. The young man with the yellow steer, you're going to be 4th. The young lady up front with the brockle steer, you're going to be 3rd. The young lady here is going to go ahead and be a reserve. The young lady in the pink is going to go ahead and be a champion senior showman. Congratulate those exhibitors, if you would, please.
Congratulations, Elizabeth Quick, for Grand Champion Showman. Reserve Grand Champion Showman goes to Anna Vetter. Again, congratulations. We are going to pause for just 2 minutes while we take a few pictures, and then we will move into our intermediate showmanship class. Intermediates. We need Camden, Aerosol, Keeley, and Dylan Price. So please be ready to enter the ring.
Well, there's only 4 of them, obviously, within this class, and I said this in the hog show last night that I judge until I got my mind made up, and I think I've got my mind made up here pretty good. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to talk them in the order that I'm going to place them, 4th through 1st here. But again, a very nice job to these intermediates. I think a deep group, even though there's only 4, they each do some things that I think are very good, and some other things that maybe we can change up there just a little bit. The young lady here with the market effort, you're going to go ahead and be 4th here this afternoon. I think you do a very good job of how you lead that heifer around the ring at a good pace and at a good fashion there. I like how upright that young lady stands. If we change anything there, what we do is we need to choke up on that heifer's halter and hold it just a little closer to her head, because now rather than your hand being clear up here in order to get her head up at the right level, you can be right here and have her head up at the right level. So we'll just choke that up just a little bit, and then the way her hind legs are set right now, if we just do the exact opposite of where they're sitting right now, to where the hind leg closer to me is further back and then the other one is further up, I think that'll help the whole look of that heifer. Hey, she even wanted to help you change it there. But I think a very competitive young showman. The young man's with the red steer. You're going to go ahead and be 3rd here this afternoon. Another one that I think a very good young man. I like where he holds his hand in on that halter. I think the young man does a good job as far as where he positions himself on the front side of that steer. I like the pace that he goes to scratching on that calf. If we change him, it's kind of the same deal. We need to change where that calf's back leg sits, specifically the one on your side. We need to bring a little further forward, okay? That way, we call it scissoring, I guess, and so if we get that back leg scissored just a little better there, I think that'll help. And then in addition to that, when we go to walking those guys, make sure you hold your stick up and down, okay? Never let it go, I guess, horizontal. That way, if you ever get in a wreck or something like that, you don't end up poking somebody because your hook is down towards the ground. But again, I think a very competitive young showman. And then we've got 2 here up top that I think rise to the top and do so very easily, and I mean that is a compliment to these 2 exhibitors. I think they're very, very talented in their own respects, and it's little things that sort them, in my opinion. This is not something that, you probably get beat on necessarily every day. I'm sure you could flip-flop these 2 a lot of different ways and do it the right way. Young lady with the Hereford heifer, you're going to go ahead and end up being reserve. When that heifer went to go pee, I guess she wanted to prop her tail up just a little too high. Just be a little more cognizant on making sure you get that heifer's tail down right away to where her hip and her hind leg structure look just a shade better, because when she pops up that tail, it makes her look just a little coarser tail-headed. And then there at times we almost get her just a shade stretched out for me personally. But I think a very competitive young lady. That leaves the young man here that's going to go ahead and be our champion. I think, you start trying to think of what you say wrong about him. I don't know as if you really can say much wrong. Where that heifer is set up, the way her back leg is placed, how he collects that heifer's top line, I think is very good. I like where he holds that heifer's halter. To me, he's the complete showman. That's why he wins. A very nice job to these intermediates. If you could, please congratulate them as they exit.
Congratulations, Intermediate Grand Champion Showman Camden Hess, Reserve Champion Keely Morris. We want to thank our belt buckle sponsor, Kathy McDaniels, for sponsoring the belt buckle today for the Grand Champion Intermediate Showman. Thank you, Kathy. We are going to move into our Junior Beef Showman. We had Gage Avery, Payson Hess, Macy Meyer, J.W. Morris, Delaney Vetter, and J.C. Vetter. If you could please make your way to the ringside now. Junior Showmanship Buckle is sponsored in memory of Donna Hanlon.
I think an awful good set of these juniors here once again. As far as I'm concerned, this is the deepest set from first to sixth of any age division that we've had yet, in my humble opinion. I think really all six of these guys do something that is awful good and something that maybe we can change up just a little bit, but I'm going to follow the same suit that I've been doing all day, and then we'll go tell you, or I'll tell you how the way I like them there, sixth through first. The young man there up front, I think he does an awful good job just as far as, again, where he positions himself on that calf, as far as how he gets that steer set up. Obviously, he doesn't necessarily want to be the best dancing partner here today. I mean, he doesn't necessarily want to lead the best, and it gets a little harder to set them legs up. But I tell you, for being a height disadvantaged young man, I'll call it, he does an awful good job as far as getting that steer's head up, and like I said, where he positions himself on that steer, I think is good. The one downfall there, and it's as soon as we took this other lap, we get him pulled into place, and we had those back legs opposite of the way we needed them. That's where I changed that young man, but he does an awful good job. Young man there with the smoke-colored heifer, I think from the time that he's come in to now, he just does a very, very consistent job of getting that heifer set up. I know when we pulled him into the profile there that first time, she wanted to mess with him just a little bit, not necessarily stay in line, but he fixed it eventually and got back in line and got that heifer set up exactly the way she needed to. Really, that's the hole that we poke in him, is just that opportunity where that heifer really wanted to fight him just a little bit. And then again, my personal preference, the way you hold your halter like this, I'd flip your hand over to where your lead goes this way over your hand. That's where I'd change. That's just a personal preference there, though. The young lady with the big black steer, I tell you what, that was the heaviest steer in the show, if I'm not mistaken, and so obviously with, again, the height disadvantage there, she does, again, an awful good job of getting that steer's head up and getting him presented. The way he's set up right now, I think, is absolutely textbook, and on top of that, there were a couple times that when we get him set up, that front leg, my front leg would be just a little too far forward, kind of throw off his front end build there just a little bit, but I think that's getting pretty critical on a showman that I think's darn sure in the hunt here. The young man there with the mini Hereford steer, I think that young man, very calm, very collected. I think the young man does a great job as far as getting feet and legs set up in an efficient manner. I think the big thing with you, young man, is just be a little more aggressive and just a little more intense on getting that steer's head up, because he's just a little deeper chested, and so when we pull his head up, it'll actually suck his chest back up in him and make his proportionality look just a little better. But again, I think he does a good job. Steer just wants to get a little lazy-headed. The young lady that comes next, another one that I think there's a lot of ring presence in that young lady, in my opinion. Very, very good job as far as how she presents herself. At times, and even especially right now, we almost get that steer just a little too gathered together to where his front legs are almost too far underneath of him. And what that does with that calf is it makes his hip structure look just a little rounder than what it actually is. He's actually really good there out of his hip. When we gather him together just a little too much, it'll actually throw off his hip structure, and it'll make his shoulder look just a little rounder in the set of it. And so with that, make sure you're real aggressive on getting his head up, and make sure we can almost get just a little more stretch out of that calf. I don't want to tell you to go stretch him out and then he look like a show sheep, but we could stretch him out just a shade, but that young lady does a good job. The young lady that comes next, another one that I think she's as good as anybody as far as getting head up, how she holds that calf's halter, I think is really good. She's very efficient at getting that steer set up. If I change you, what I want to change about you is when we pull him into line, what I wanted to see you do, both the first time we pulled him into a profile and the second time, is I wanted you to pull him into his position rather than use your stick quite so much. There was at one point when we first pulled him in on that profile, he was set up perfect. You moved that back leg just a little too far back there. And so the way he's set up right now, move my front leg back just a little bit. We're going to do a little coaching here on the microphone. That's perfect. Do that every single time. That's exactly the way he needs to be set up. And a lot of the time, he'll pull right into that. You don't even really need to use your stick. Use your stick all that much. You can pull him right into that. But I think that young lady's awful competitive. I think it's tight amongst this group. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to set the microphone down, and then I will go shake the hands in order of 6th through 1st. Give them one more once over here. I want all of these juniors to understand when they leave this ring that they're darn sure competitive. A good lineup of these juniors. Give these guys a nice round of applause. I'll go show you the order I like them.
Today's belt buckle was sponsored in memory of Donna Hanlon. Big shout out to our judge again. Thank you for coming all the way down from Casper. We appreciate you. And congratulations, Payson, winning junior round robin. I think the juniors were a pretty tough show today. Second place is J.C. Vetter for reserve. Congratulations. Thank you all participants. If you have not gotten a sale backdrop photo with your steer, again, if you have not been to the backdrop with your steer and you are planning on selling your steer, you need to head to the backdrop immediately. If you are going to sell your steer, you need to head to the backdrop for backdrop photos.
I think agriculture is at the center of everything we do here, and so the importance is we really do focus on that. We're not focused on commercial banking or business or deposits. We're here to lend money to farmers and ranchers right here in our territory.
We use an operating line every year, and knowing that we can count on that operating line and knowing that they are willing to sit down and talk about buying a piece of land is extremely important. And Farm Credit, they understand our business, they understand what we're doing out here, they understand what we're trying to do and where we're going.
Yeah, I think the importance of having a lender like Farm Credit, like us, is that we know agriculture. And so we're only focused on ag and ranching and rural America. We're not focused on, other outside issues. And so we know it, we live it, and we're here to lend to it.